Hello, welcome to the James Cooley Show. It's your life. I'm your host, Dr. James J.C. Cooley. I hope everybody had a wonderful, wonderful weekend. We're kicking off Monday with a bang. And I tell you, we're back, and Michelle and I are back in Texas. We spent the last 10, 11 days in California and also Las Vegas, and I just feel good to be home. Feel good to be home. So I got a very important show for you today because a lot of times the employee or the employee, sometimes there is a disconnect, and neither one of them knows the true value of what need to be accomplished because everybody had to come together and be included in the workforce and understand why you're doing the job that you're doing. So we got a guest on the show today that's going to enlighten us, and he's going to explain a lot of different things. He has been in the business for quite some time, and I'm just excited to have this guest on the show today. But as you know, I can't do anything without bringing Dr. Michelle Cooley in. How you doing today, Dr. Michelle Cooley?
I'm doing great. I'm had a chance to talk to this guest before the live show right now, and he's got a lot of information. I mean, hours not going to do him justice to talk about the topic at hand, but we are really excited to have him on. And this is a conversation that affects everybody. It's not just you viewers who are watching, listening. It affects everybody. So pay attention and just get educated.
Wow. So I'm excited. I want to get started, Michelle. So can you do the honors by introducing the title of the show, purpose of the show, and introduce this absolutely fantastic guest?
Yes, the title of today's show, audience, is called Equity and Inclusion, a view from the job seeker and employer. So we're having a sit-down conversation with the Vice President of Consulting and Strategic Partnerships with BI Worldwide and author Mark Hirschfeld. He's going to discuss how job seekers have experienced bias in the hiring process, employers taking steps to minimize that bias, a growing body of research showing that culture plays a significant role in equity and inclusion, and organizations who are creating more equitable and inclusive workplaces are enjoying positive organizational benefits. So Mark Hirschfeld has been researching the elements that create more inspiring, inclusive workplaces for over 40 years. Joining Dr. Donald O. Clifton in 1981, who is widely seen as the grandfather of positive psychology and designer of the Clifton Strengths Finder. For the last 10 years, Mark has been the Vice President of Consulting and Strategic Partnership with BI Worldwide, a global engagement agency. He and his wife, Nancy, who have been married for 39 years, live in the Twin Cities. So we're going to talk to Mark about this amazing topic, equity and inclusion, job seekers and employers. Please welcome to our show, Mr. Mark Hirschfeld.
How you doing, Mark? How you doing? Welcome to the show, my friend.
Great pleasure. Thank you for being here, and welcome from spring in Minnesota.
Man, I love, just like I mentioned to you, Minnesota. And not in the wintertime, not when it's raining, you know, but especially that Mall of America and a lot of other things that great city has so much to offer. Well, can you start? Can we start off? Can you tell our viewers and the listeners a little bit more about you, where you grew up, but what made you click, and why you're so passionate about what you do?
Well, thank you, Doctor. Just a couple of things, and I just recently did a little testimonial in my faith community, and I had a chance to think about some of these things, and maybe it's also because of some of this gray hair as I'm reflecting back on life. But I'm going to take you and your viewers all the way back to North Platte, Nebraska, where I grew up. Population 17,180. And our family had then, when I was growing up, and still actually over 105-year-old business in its fourth generation, a retail clothing store. And I want to tell you just three little anecdotes that maybe to me have taken me where I am in my work today. The first thing, both my father and mother were in the business along with a couple of aunts and uncles. But specifically with my folks, they both had disabilities. My father, when he was 17, contracted arthritis, terribly debilitating. and sadly took his life. I now actually am older than my father when he passed away, which I think about from time to time. And my mother suffered from depression. And that, of course, was a terrible stigma and still is too much of a stigma these days. But one of the things that I learned from that, Dr. Cooley, is that they were remarkable people in their own rights. And as someone much brighter than me once said, disability doesn't mean inability. And so that was one lesson I took from my family. The second, briefly, was back in 1967. My dad and his his family members, made a conscious decision to break the color barrier of employment in my hometown by hiring a wonderful man, Leroy, who I just adored. And they did that knowing that that was going to cause a bit of a ruckus, which it did. But they pushed through it, and Leroy was a great employee, and other people started coming into the employment area that again came from different backgrounds. And I'm not suggesting that inequities are gone from my hometown, but that was a great lesson for me that you could use that the workplace could be a place where you could bend the curve on things like this in their own small way. Then the final thing that I'll tell you that I think is kind of, I get a kick out of. My father was not educated, did not have a college degree, never went to college, but was one of the brightest men I ever knew. And when I was heading to college, he asked me what I wanted to study, and I was really interested in psychology. But I thought, well, maybe I should, do something practical in business. And he said, well, here, Mark, let me help you. I know what business is. He said, selling is taking care of your customers so much and loving them so much and understanding their needs that they leave with a sack in their hand. And managing is loving those employees even more. And so they in turn take care of the customers, and the customers leave with a sack in their hands, which, by the way, of course, as you know, 25 years later, Harvard came out with the so-called service profit chain that my very uneducated father knew far more about years before they did. And so those kind of lived experiences had a tremendous impact on how I think about the workplace, how I think about it from, I for 13 years helped job seekers in an outplacement as an outplacement consultant, and now as a business consultant to employers, thinking about creating workplaces that really, thrive and are more productive because they are more equitable and inclusive. So that's just a little bit about me, sir.
Wow. Yeah, impressive. Hey, Mark, did you have any mentors growing up that led you and that you abide by some of the things that you learned from them that make you the person that you are today?
Yeah, aside from my folks, I mentioned Dr. Clifton. I went to work for him in 1981. I've been doing this for a long time, sir. And I was headed to another profession, which I think I would have been fine. But, one of the things that Don said I thought was interesting, and if you're familiar with the Strength Finder and some of the tools that Gallup does, when I first interviewed with him, I said, well, what do you do around here? What's your business? And he said, well, we do polling and research. He said, that's our business, but that's not our mission. And I'd never heard anybody talk like that. And he said, our mission is to help people be heard, and leaders need to hear what people are saying. And then he said, we have these assessment tools and we design those, and that's our business, but that's not our mission. Our mission is to help people discover and develop their talents and strengths, and then find ways that they can grow and develop those within an organization that cares. And again, I might have been well served in my other career, but I just thought I want to be a part of this. And there's nary, he's passed away in 2004, but nary a day goes by that I don't think about Don. And then Dr. Michelle mentioned my wife of 39 years. I met her at Gallup. So both my personal and professional life have been greatly influenced by my first job out of college.
Man, I'm loving the enthusiasm that you're bringing already, and just to get in the know stage right now, but just the excitement and just enthusiasm that you'll describe. If you had to pick one adjective to describe who is Mark, what would that adjective be and why?
aside from my wife saying, moderately irritating from time to time, Dr. Cooley, I guess the adjective that folks have said, and this is one of the adjectives or descriptors of the Clifton's Strength Finder. A couple, there's one, and it's an acronym, WOO, W-O-O-O, which means win others over. I like to go out on Friday evenings, and we go to watch the baseball game at the Target Field. I'd like to get to meet all 20,000 of the people there.
Yeah.
I just, for me, that's the joy of life, right? Is just meeting new people, and I understand some people by their personality that's not the case, but a lot of what I've learned is just leaning into various communities, getting to know folks, understand what they're doing, and if maybe I can be of some help to them, great. But just that casting the net wide and getting to know lots of folks, at least as far as I can tell, has been one of the more enriching experiences in my life.
Wow, very exciting. We got to take a station break, but when we come back, we're going to dive in the deep of this. We're going to talk about equity, inclusion, and we're going to talk about a lot of other things. So if you want to be part of the conversation, whichever platform that you're watching this on, whether it's E360 TV, YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitter, E360 Television, or 55 other live streaming platforms, just go to the platform, ask any question that you might have, and I promise you Mark will get you an answer. It's your life, and we'll see you shortly after the break.
Love who you are. Love who you are. You're a masterpiece. Love who you are. Love who you were born to be. Love me some me. Create, collaborate, commit with confidence. Commit with what? Commit with what? In everything that you do. I am a leader. I am a senior. I will be one of the leaders of this world. So, if you know yourself, and if you love yourself, you got the confidence, you can share yourself, you can be who you are. It doesn't matter if you short, tall, fat, big, whatever, black, white, pink, gold, purple. It doesn't matter. You step up with confidence. You are a masterpiece. You are a leader.
Heaven Abounds in You takes you on an inward journey of discovery that dramatically transforms your outward experience of life. Discover the power of belief. Utilize it in connection with science to create a vision of meaning and purpose that pulls you forward. Let go of the meager me to discover the magnificent me. Let go of your painful past and live life free from fear, worry, and stagnation. Experience an abundant universe as you powerfully create happiness, relationships, health, and limitless opportunities. When you heal your mind, all things are possible.
Hello, welcome back to the James Cooley Show. It's your life, and I tell you, this guest right here, always the first segment we try to explore, get the audience an opportunity to really get a chance to know our guests. And I tell you, this is a great guest right here, and he's getting ready to enlighten you with a lot of things that you as an employer or employee that might need to understand some of the things that can help make your job easier, and also as an employer, how you can go about relating to your employees, just create harmony in the workspace. So I tell you what, sit back, get ready, ask any questions that you might have, and so Mark, can you tell our viewers and our listeners about your worldwide uh, role as the Vice President of Consulting and Strategic Partnership? What does it entail?
You bet. So I work with a team of really talented social scientists and researchers, and what our job is to, if we were to think about it sort of in the medical parlance, we're sort of the diagnosticians. A company may come to us and say we have difficulties with retention or in manufacturing safety or in a retail group customer satisfaction, that sort of thing. And our job is to try to figure out what are some of the emotional factors, what's going on in the hearts and heads of that audience of employees or salespeople, whatever the case might be, and try to figure out, by understanding them better, create, different kinds of things to help improve their workplace, and in doing so, help our clients to achieve better business results. And the good thing for me is that some of the things that my father thought about, taking good care of his employees, all I'm really doing is just scaling those things with larger global companies, but it's a lot of the same kind of principles of figuring out, how you can put people in the right kind of roles that fit their strengths, how you can recognize them, how they can feel heard in terms of their ideas, and those kinds of things, which all, again, sound like reasonable things, but our team is the one where, hey, we have a chart, and we're not kidding, that here's the evidence that these kinds of things do make a tremendous difference in the productivity and growth of companies. And again, just with all employees, but also with particular emphasis on helping our clients with regard to historically marginalized communities.
Mark, can you tell us what is equity and inclusion that the audience may not really understand what that is?
Dr. Michelle, this is not my analogy, but I will cite it from an individual in this space and if you've heard it, but just for your viewers who haven't, he gave a great analogy. He said, diversity, which is not as much my expertise, but he said diversity is when you get invited to a dance. Equity is when someone asks you to dance. And inclusion is when they say, hey, what's your song? And so, each of them are certainly important. And I like that imagery in that, we might have an equitable place where there, lots of people are in the workplace doing jobs, but do they truly feel included? I mean, there's lots of different ways that can be done. And what just some of our research has indicated that there are some specific sort of cultural artifacts that when people feel certain kinds of behaviors in terms of the culture of their employer, they're more likely to say, hey, this is a place for people like me where I truly belong and where I do genuinely feel included. And the good news is that is one where all boats rise. It's not just important for marginalized communities, but for everyone. So in that sense, again, it's good business to think about and build these kind of cultures.
Well, you definitely have an interest in helping those, let's say, who need help as far as job seekers, etc. Can you tell us, maybe, is there a backstory, especially helping those ones who, let's say, have disabilities, whether visible or invisible?
You bet. So I acquired some skills along with actually my wife worked for this employer as well as also my co-author Lee Branham for a firm that did what's called corporate outplacement consulting, which is when people lose their jobs for no reason of their own, a merger, acquisition, those kind of things. They came into our program and we would help them to find a new career and an opportunity that was good for them. Sometimes that meant reemployment. It could mean self-employment. But it was just very, very satisfying work. It was just a really fun 13 years in my career. So I developed a lot of these skills, but then particularly with folks with disabilities, again, a little sensitivity to that topic from my folks. But back in 1999, our beloved son, Jacob, we have two children, was diagnosed on the autism spectrum.
Mhm.
So I've spent quite a bit of time working with that community and other folks with disabilities and helping them to find meaningful employment. Sadly, if you have a disability, you're more likely to be unemployed. You're more likely to be underemployed. When a recession hits, you're more likely to be the first out of the economy and the last in. And so these are real challenges. And so I've had the pleasure, really more in my volunteer life, although I did take a step back for a year and helped with start up an executive. I was the executive director of a nonprofit. But a lot of this is not only in my professional life, but in some volunteer life. And I've seen just wonderful things for our son, who has a great job right now as a baker, and I eat too much of his product.
Mhm.
He's got a great job and really fulfilling, and seeing him and others make great contributions, and again then those contributions can help in the success of the organization. So in that sense, again, it's a win-win for everybody.
What challenges do job seekers face when trying to find a position in a workplace that is more diverse, equitable, and inclusive? What are the special challenges?
Well, broadly, I think there are two sets of challenges, if you will. Some of them is with regard to the hiring process, and that could be from how jobs are benchmarked to the posts that they're put out to how resumes are read. So with regard to the bits and bytes of what people go through in terms of looking for work with a prospective employer, there is potential for bias in each and every one of those steps. And so it's important for folks to understand those things. A really good, if you have a Netflix subscription, there's a documentary, it was out a few years ago, called Coded Bias. Can give you just some examples of how, as we lean into AI and all of the potential there are also some real dark sides to that in terms of the potential bias. So that's one thing. But then there's also the psychology behind this. And again, just to give you a brief example, there's something in the world of psychology called similarity bias, that we want to hire people who might be like us, or in some way went to the same schools or whatnot. There's a really fascinating study that showed managers who were Caucasian were more likely to hire folks who were Caucasian. Interestingly enough, managers who were Black were more likely to do the same thing. So the bias works both ways. Although of course there are far fewer managers who are Black than there are who are Caucasian. And so those there are some things that are ingrained in us that we have to intentionally sort of step into and understand. And then in understanding those biases, either conscious or unconscious, perhaps we can be, as managers, better at making those decisions. But as a job seeker, you want to be aware of those and understand that those biases are there. And so you can maybe address them, and then understand that, literally every part of the hiring process, bias is potentially evident. And again, understanding how to address and manage those is for people looking not just for a job, but a good job where they truly will be honored for who they are, their skills, their abilities, and their innate talents.
Mark, for a lot of the employers that are in the business and they really don't understand how to build a team, bring a team together, make everybody feel like they're part of the team. Have you ran across any challenges where you had to just let the CEO, president, or whoever was running that, but like, hey, you really need to think about this, or you really need to consider this, or you really need to focus on these things? How
Yeah.
difficult is that for you to tell a CEO, or president, or company owner about these things so the biases won't just be blatant? all the time.
Yeah. I think, folks want to have sort of the heart of this story that, innately this is a right thing, which it is. And, you also need to figure out, what is there a business case or an opportunity whereby, creating a more equitable and inclusive workplace, work gets done better. And one example, back before I moved to Minneapolis, I was part of and I see Dr. Cooley, you've spoken at some Rotary clubs. I don't know if are you a Rotarian as well? A wonderful service organization.
Absolutely.
Well, we can talk about that another time. But in my Rotary Club in Omaha, we still have an award that recognizes employers who do a wonderful job of hiring and training and retaining folks with disabilities. And we highlighted, it was actually the very first year we did it, a telemarketing firm in Omaha, where the human resources team took on a really interesting challenge. They started hiring and worked closely with agencies and supports that had folks with visual disabilities. And they started hiring a cohort and whatnot. And then in this speech, the woman who was the representative, they followed, here's the cohort of people with visual disabilities. We followed them for 3 years and then compared that to, just people who didn't have that disability for a 3-year period of time. And after the 3 years, what they found out was the cohort of folks with the visual disability on average stayed longer, had less absenteeism, interestingly enough, used less benefits, which I thought was very provocative. And then, as of course, by law, there is, as part of the Americans with Disabilities Act, there is this law that says employers need to make a reasonable accommodation in some kind of way. And they looked, and there were some accommodations with some employees that were a little pricey, but the average reasonable accommodation for these hundreds of individuals was $150. And after the meeting, one of the CEOs at our Rotary Club came up and he said, okay, let me get this straight. If I lean into this group, I get more reliable people who take less, who use less benefits and stay longer. And my cost of acquisition is $150. Count me in. And I've just seen many, many stories like that where, this is not charity at this organization that they're hiring these individuals. They have important jobs that need to be done and that the work is available, and that this cohort of individuals in this particular case, but we could talk about people with other physical disabilities or mental illness or intellectual disabilities like our son, they can make a contribution and find, meaning and value and true joy in the work itself. And then, we get things done for our customers as a result of having that kind of workplace. So, to me, and that's just one of many, many stories I've had the privilege to see. And then there are many others out there where, what are your business challenges? What are you trying to get done? And let's see if in some way creating a more equitable and inclusive workplace and also a more diverse workplace could help us solve some problems and get some things done that we're not getting done right now.
Wow. And that's also when you work like that, and when the employees bring the employees in, when everybody understands the purpose of the job, meaning, say if you have a aerospace company where you're building planes, and even the guy at the bottom that's making the rivets to hold the skin on, if you understand that his job is important, not just for the 8 hours or 9 hours, but understand what he's building. And everybody is considered included in the overall task. I think that brings together a lot of great teamwork. You know what, Mark? We're going to take a station break. But I tell you, this conversation is so great. If you want to be part of this conversation, regardless of which platform that you're watching this on, all you have to do is go to the comments on a platform that you're watching this on. Ask any question that you might have. I promise you. We'll get you an answer. It's your life. Continue to smile. We'll see you shortly after the break.
I've seen a smile convey I love you. I'm proud of who you are. One that keeps us close when we're apart. Walking from the darkness of all that we've been through. It seems that there might be a way to leave behind the loneliness we've known and live again life of
Noah Dingley here, producer of The James Cooley Show, It's Your Life. And the new audio version of James' book, Country Boy, City Boy, A Journey That Ain't Over Yet, is a must-have. James shares his true life story of struggle and success in America. It's both a cautionary tale and a roadmap to achieving the American dream. Get the new audio version of Country Boy, City Boy, A Journey That Ain't Over Yet by James Cooley on Amazon.com or wherever audiobooks are sold.
Hello, welcome back to James Cooley Show, It's Your Life, and my absolutely wonderful guest here, Mark Hirschfeld, is. I tell you, I like this guy. I mean, he's telling how it is, and he's laying it out, and we can all learn, whether you're an employee or employer. You can learn a lot from this young man, right? Oh, yes, he's a young man. Yeah. So, if you want to be part of the conversation, all you got to do is just ask the questions. And I promise you we'll get you an answer. Hey, Mark, you had mentioned something earlier about, you were talking about biases, hiring biases, the disparity of managers as relate to African-American and Caucasian managers. Is big disparity in that. Why do you think it's like that? And do you see that the gap is kind of closing where everybody could potentially get a fair opportunity regardless of whether you're black, white, green, gold, purple, big, or whatever? Can you talk about that a little bit?
Well, I'm not sure if I can say that there is a broad trend that we're bending the curve on this, sir. But I would say that, you know, what encourages me is I see places where there is progress on an individual organizational basis. We just finished a study with an organization with their large sales group and several thousand people. It's a very large company. And we had the pleasure, they've had various kinds of initiatives going on with regard to diversity and inclusion in this space, but weren't seeing some results. And one of the things that our research says that from a senior leadership point of view, whether you're taking on this initiative or other kinds of initiatives, we oftentimes see companies where, you know, they'll go to managers and this is a little crass, but you know, you get dipped in the training. We did the training. You're good, right? Well, you know, maybe you're good, but then you go back, you know, to your job and this little thing called real life and all of that. So rather than do that, we actually take a page out of a lot of good learning theory that's happening these days, rather than, just provide things to people on an ongoing basis. And that, wow, I've seen this been going on now for 6 months. I think our leaders actually may care about this. And then just addition more skills. And so, learning some rather basic skills that then, you can apply then to do something a little more complicated, and then, a little more complex. And it was really neat after this was, I think, 8 months. We had a pre and post, and there were significant increases in not only people's awareness of these things, but equally, if not more importantly, we had a question around that. I've done some things as a result of this to create a more inclusive work culture, and as a nerdy social scientist, it's always very satisfying when you see those charts, and then we're in the process of saying, okay, what are we doing next year, and how can we keep building on this? And in their particular case, one of the things we're talking about a business case, that they found that as they've created a more diverse group of sellers, that they are better to engage in the broader market. And so, again, is it a good thing for the workplace? Yes. And more of their customers are being more effectively served because of initiatives like this. And so, that gives me hope that there are more opportunities out there, that in toto, more companies will do this. And we spend so much, a third of our life at work. And so adult life, that is. And so, being able to see if we can affect change. I guess I don't know if it's all been said and done, but I do see lots of things to be very, very encouraged about in this space.
Wow. And you had mentioned a little bit earlier about unconscious bias. And first of all, can you explain that to our viewers and listeners? What is unconscious bias, and why it's so important that we educate our employees, everybody,
You bet.
that there's no place in the workplace for that, just because of a person's skin color, religion, sexual orientations, all that. That we cannot just assume that that person don't know what they're doing or whatever, or have all these biases against them. Can you explain that a little bit?
You bet. One of the best examples of this, back in the late 90s, I had a chance to help out in a study, and I just saw that it's been replicated many times. But this is a good example, and one, to be wary of for job seekers, but then also employers are hiring. And what they did in the study back then, and they're still doing, is they sent out a whole series of resumes, okay? And all the resumes were exactly the same, with one change. And that one change was the name on the top of the resume. And under condition number one, the name on the resume was from, there weren't even photographs, but a name that would be historically attributed to someone who's white. Then the second one would be name attributed to someone is a white woman. So white man, white male, white female. Then the conditions 3 and 4 were a name of someone who would be historically, that name would be attributed to someone who is African American, either a male or female. And they sent out thousands of these resumes. And then, okay, which resumes do we get back? And as a reminder, it's the same resume. The most resumes, of no surprise, came back with the white male name, followed by white female, followed by African American male, and then dead last was African American female. That is just a very powerful evidence of unconscious bias. Again, the photographs of the people, it could have been my name, but could have been someone who's African American. But just that word triggered evidence of bias that, again, is completely unconscious. People looking at the resumes aren't saying, "Oh, that person, is this, therefore I'm not gonna hire them," because they didn't even have that information. And so there is lots of science around this unconscious bias. And then, of course, the second concept about that is the so-called intersectionality, where if you come from two of those marginalized communities, in the case of female and African American, that intersectionality is a great penalty. And that intersectionality could be, male, female, and disabled, or a person of color and disabled. It doesn't make any difference what those are. That sort of intersectionality makes the penalty even greater. And so there are things that are going on as we're processing all of this information that is coming into us by our own lived experiences. We don't even know that these biases are there, and so we try to play for those. So for example, as employer, you try to manage them. As there are a number of employers, for example, who the HR people will look at resumes to see if the people are qualified, and then they actually take off that attributing information and give only the resume with the qualifications to the hiring managers, again, hopefully to minimize the effect of that bias. Now, eventually you're going to see somebody in an interview and then realize who that person is. But again, there are more things being done, but that unconscious bias is exceptionally powerful, and it can have an impact, in this particular exchange, either from the job seeker who is saying, that doesn't, I don't know why, but that doesn't feel right, or the employer can also be impacted by this. Hopefully, well, not hopefully, but hopefully it's not explicit that I don't want to hire you because of the way you look, or because you're using some mobility kind of a piece of equipment. But the unconscious bias absolutely affects our entire life. But within this workplace kind of exchange, of which I have familiarity, yeah, the evidence is just overwhelming of the impact of that bias.
Wow, that's deep. but you know what? It's true. It's true.
And we all have it. I suffer from bias. You suffer from bias.
We all have unconscious biases.
Yeah.
But I believe the key to it is getting a better understanding of why and when it's pointed out, or if it locks in to you, that we try to clear that up. Now, we got a question from Tools for Everyday Living, Dr. Stacy Bullitt. How do we help others see their biases when it's unconscious?
You bet. The evidence, is there that these kind of, training, that you can take specific training for those kinds of things. We've actually been researching about the impact of just, having more inclusive kind of places like employee resource groups within workplaces. We've actually seen and have good documentation that those kind of things can make a difference. And I have the great honor of being the executive sponsor of we have 4 employee resource groups where I work, and it's just wonderful to come alongside those communities, and we make that an open experience. The community that we're trying to care for is there, but then we as allies, and I think a lot of great experiences, just learning about those kind of things. Just recently, a very dear friend of mine and I at work, every year, we are not Muslim, we are of a different faith, but we go to an iftar and celebrate Ramadan with folks. And it's not a matter now for my friend and I whether we're going to go, but just which place we're going to go next year. And I've learned so much about that faith. But then equally, if not more importantly, my friend just hired a young lady, wonderful person. Has great promise, and he has some some empathy and understanding about her life and her journey as a result of doing these things, and they've had some communications about that, and so oftentimes it's just maybe putting yourself into some of those kind of experiences. I'm a coach for Special Olympics, Dr. Cooley, which is really more, like, hey, it's your turn now to bat. It's not a big deal, but we have a number of volunteers who come out to our Special Olympics, and so many of them come away with just a completely different experience and sense of the just, these are a lot of good folks, and in ways they're folks just like us that have aspirations and dreams. And so to me, I think at least what has helped me as much as not only the formal training, but just a lot of informal, interactions and getting into communities and understanding them and listening and participating has for me been just, it's not only been a good learning, but just a sense of, a place for great joy and experience.
I think that is so great what you just said, because unless you actually allow yourself to go into a different community that you don't know a whole lot about and learn about folks. Most of the time we're gonna have that offer they don't want to have nothing to do, thinking bad things or whatever because you don't even know who the person is.
Yep.
So I tell you what, we're gonna take a station break, but we're gonna come back. We're gonna pick it up. We got a lot more. Mark is wow, he's on fire. And if you want to be part of this conversation, all you have to do is just go to the platform that you're watching us on. Ask any question that you might have. I promise you, we'll get you an answer. It's your life, and we'll see you shortly after the break.
I never wanna leave. Yeah, I'm right where I wanna be. We got something you and me, and I can't get rid of this feeling. Just like a magnet, we're just like a magnet. The things we have can't be taken for granted. Now I know that it has always been you. I can't help it, I'm so drawn to you. Just like a magnet, we're just like a magnet. The things we have can't be taken for granted. Now I know that it has always been you. I can't help it, I'm so drawn to you. Hey, I'm so drawn to you. I'm so drawn to you. Yeah, yeah.
Hello, I'm Dr. James J.C. Cooley from the United States of America, and I am here to just say, first of all, I'm so happy and honored to be in the Coffee Book 2023, Unified Brain Z and the other organizations. Thank you so much for giving me an opportunity to be a part of this collection. Hello, welcome back to the James Cooley Show. It's your life, and I'm thoroughly enjoying this discussion with Mark and a lot of things that I think that we need to be aware of. A lot of times, just like we was just talking about unconscious bias, we all have it. And sometimes we just don't understand because we don't know a certain culture, environment, etc. So we have our roadblocks up, our blinders up, and we just see things our way. But the best way to understand how others think is allow yourself to be part of that environment. I'm not saying you have to live there or do this, that, but just get an understanding that we all are people, regardless of race, creed, color. So I encourage everybody, just like what Mark just said a few minutes ago, allow yourself to be a part of that for a little while so you can get a basic understanding. Mark, it's been brought to my attention that you are an author and that you wrote a book and a lot of things about best practices. can you tell our viewers and the audience, first of all, what's the name of your book, what it entails, and how this is going to help them as employers or employees?
You bet. No, I have a writing partner again who has had the pleasure of being on your show, Lee Branham, and we've co-authored two books. The first one was published by McGraw-Hill. It's called Reengage: How America's Best Places to Work Inspire Extra Effort in Extraordinary Times. And it was a study that we did of employers, again, who are maybe leading the way, and what are they doing? And we identified six critical kind of elements of culture that predicted those things. And we've been talking about some of those today already, in leadership and people being recognized, and good work-life balance and the like. And then right after the pandemic, actually, I got a call from a woman who's a pastor at the church that we go to. And she said, "Hey, Mark, a lot of people we know are, because of the pandemic, getting furloughed and let go from their jobs. Can you help?" And of course, as I mentioned earlier, both my wife and I and Lee had opportunities to work in career coaching and job search coaching. And so we kind of got going on that, and it was really fun, and just was able to step in and help some folks at an important time. But it also got me thinking about some things with regard to job search, and specifically, there's a lot of good books about there about what to do with your resume and interviewing and negotiating, all those kind of things. But it occurred to both Lee and I that there were some things about the culture of a prospective employer that people should know. And we used as a backdrop Lee's wonderful book on the hidden reasons why employees leave. And we turned that lens from the employer to the individual employee to say, hey, here are 7 things around leadership, around getting off to a great start, around using your strengths and the like, so that prospective employees to a company could really carefully assess that, hey, this is a good job and the salary looks good and all that sort of thing, but am I going to, is it going to be a really great job in a culture that is toxic and horrible, or is it going to be a great job and also a great workplace? So we kind of turned, the lens, if you will, from what we know about great cultures, and hopefully provided some advice to individual employees that they can use some of that knowledge and insight to just find a great opportunity that really does honor who they are, and for which they'll be fairly paid and can really contribute.
Wow. You mentioned Lee. Lee is a great guy, man.
Mm.
Yeah, we did have him on the show a few months back, and I just really enjoyed his conversation. I'm enjoying both of you guys. So, can you tell our viewers and listeners, what can they get your book? How can they get your book?
You can find either of them on Amazon, or if you are a fan of independent bookstores, you can also request them through there. We have them on a service that they can be there, and/or also you can check with your local library. We have libraries who have the books available as well.
Oh yeah. Hey, well, this has been such a great conversation. We still got about 2.5 minutes in the show, but can you give our viewers and our listeners some takeaways that they need to focus on or need to consider on what's going to help make their environment from an employee perspective and from an employee perspective on some of the things that need to be thought about and talked about and implemented to make the environment better?
You bet. I had a mentor who gave me a description about what he called climate versus culture. And climate, like the weather, can change more quickly, but culture, it takes a while to build a great culture, and then it takes a while to keep sustaining that. And so if you're a leader, you need to keep leaning into these kinds of things. I spent summers in a farm out in Nebraska, and it was a while before I finally learned, the chores don't ever get done. And these are chores. You have to continue to build these chores in working, every day to build the culture. As Dr. Clifton said, whatever you do, Mark, every day your workplace is going to get a little bit better or a little bit worse. It's never going to stay the same. And so if you are stewards of a culture, you've got chores every day that you need to do. And as a job seeker, again, people need to feed their families and pay their rents and all those sorts of things. But, there are really great companies who will honor your skills, honor your strengths, and will pay you fairly, and then you can enjoy being in these kind of cultures. They are out there. You may need to look a little bit further, but they are very much there. And if you can take the extra time to find some of those, I think you'll find that this third of our life that we spend at work can be far more meaningful and joyful as you proceed through your career.
How can people get in touch with you to enlist your services, have you come speak, have you come and whatever? How can they reach out to you?
I'm on LinkedIn, and so that's a great way to connect, and happy to do that. And I work with sort of a large enterprise kind of companies now. That's sort of the strike of our firm. If you work for a smaller employer or whatever, happy to. I know lots of folks. I've been in this profession for a long time. Maybe happy to introduce you to some other folks that I know in this community who could be of some assistance, who maybe have more specialty in those spaces as well.
Mark, I want to thank you so much, my friend.
Thank
for
you.
taking time to come on the show. Been a fantastic interview, conversation, what I like to call it, authentic conversation. So I'd like to thank you so much. I'd like to thank Dr. Michelle Cooley for putting together another absolutely fantastic show. I'd like to thank all my producers at radio stations, Todd Pirate and the other producers, because this will be ran on that one. Most importantly, I'd like to thank our viewers and our listeners for taking the time to tune in to the James Cooley Show. It's Your Life. I want you to always remember to dream big, think big, and be big at everything that you do. We'll be back tomorrow, same time, same place. It's Your Life. We'll see you then.